Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have just been absolutely taken this morning. On my way in, I kept pondering what it was that I wanted to say, what profound message to provide, and truly the only thing that can even begin to do justice is thank you. Thank you for all that you've done to keep our unhoused neighbors in consideration, especially during these cold months. Thank you for the generous contributions that have been provided this morning and that I'm going to be taking to the warming center shortly after. And thank you for the invitation to continue the conversation and speak to you all about the many successes that we've been experiencing this past year. So yes, my name is Krygier. I am the acting executive director for Room at the Inn. And today I want to share about the impacts that our community continues to make possible this past year. Make sure that's on. So we've been in operation since 2007 in Marquette, Michigan, under the guidance of Helen McCormick, and our operations have always focused on making sure that our doors are open for any persons who come to us in need, seeking shelter. And for us, we are determined to make sure that even if we aren't able to provide accommodations internal, that we are making sure that you are getting services. So regardless of the circumstance, for any person who identifies as being unhoused, we're here to make sure that you have the guidance, that you have the community support, and you have the necessary shelter, either through Room at the Inn, or we even provide emergency hotel vouchers for persons until a bed is available inside our house. And for us, we've been in operation since 2007, and we've since moved over into our permanent shelter facilities about 3 years ago. For anyone who hasn't been over to our facilities, we have an interesting little pipeline. For any person who is identified as needing services, who is unhoused, or even at risk of becoming homeless, we try to take initial assessments, identify what our individual needs, and trying to then prioritize them alongside 2 case managers who serve as street navigators and housing outreach. A fun fact about that is because of community support and volunteers who assist us through a grant application with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, we are currently wrapping up a $250,000 grant that will then sustain our case managers for the next 4 years. And this is individuals, yes, oh my Lanta, thank you. So these are 2 individuals who not only connect with persons who are identified and come into our shelters, but they're even going out on the streets, trying to connect with persons in the parks who are in their cars over in the parking lots, anyone whom we can identify as living in an episode of homelessness, to make sure that they are being prioritized and that this is an experience that they don't have to experience alone. And they do track them all the way through the process of starting an episode, trying to make sure that it's short-term, rare, and a one-time occurrence, all the way to when they start their next chapter within their own homes. So within that service provision, they do try to intentionally break it apart, understand what are some personal and professional goals that we want to establish together. And a new initiative that we are now bringing about is trying to offer up employment, but also personal rehabilitative services, of which we've gotten rave reviews from our guests once they've been able to connect with North Care providers, as well as our Upper Great Lake Family Health providers, and seeing what it is that can be done, whether it be for substance abuse disorder, or just trying to understand what are the processes necessary in order to have a record expungement, in order to ensure that I do have equal access to employment opportunities or to housing opportunities within my area. And all of this comes into consideration of what it is that we can do to offer up an inclusive and equitable chance for a person then to depart from our facilities, and understanding that they're not just going to survive when they leave our doors, but they're really going to thrive. Within this past year, we have continued our 24/7 low barrier shelter facilities. So this means there's no requirement for financial income. Even if a person starts making financial income and they're building up their resources, we want to know that they've got enough to continue to pay for their housing, that they're going to be okay, and that they don't just have 1 month's rent. And then the question will come into play of what happens during the next month. There's no requirement for sobriety. For that end, we do understand that substance use is a difficult thing to shake off, to overcome. It is a challenging thing. So we want to work collectively on identifying what are the personal desires to then seek out those rehabilitative services, whether alongside our case managers or health professionals. We do have providers from Upper Peninsula Health Plans, as well as members of our Upper Great Lakes Family Health and North Care providers coming in weekly, and even twice a week for some, to check in one-on-one with guests as to what it is that they desire and what available services can help them overcome those difficult challenges. We've served approximately 170,000 meals. That is 3 meals within a given day, in addition to snacks. And over 90% of that food has been provided because of community members, because of in-kind, non-perishable donations, because of the generosity of our neighbors. And certainly, that has truly been the greatest pleasure, including the volunteers who helped to serve those meals. A big part of what helps to build the morality of our guests is that one-on-one interaction, having someone who actively engages in conversation, who wants to check in, know the person that they're serving a plate to, but not just to plop a meal onto a plate, but to properly present it and have that warm engagement with our individuals. We have over 380 logged guest stays. Now that's to over 200 unique individuals, but something I am most proud of is within this past year, our recidivism and retention rates have gone down within the past year. We've been able to take in more guests. We've had less guests return after they've already been a member of our community. And in general, we used to have a guest stay that extended 41 nights within a given episode, and we've since been able to reduce that down to 37 per episode. That's shortening it by 4 nights that a person's at our facilities versus going out into their own independent housing situation. And that is well below the 90-day national average, or the bar that all other service providers continue to set. And my intentional goals are to take that all the way down to just 30 days within the next 2 years. For that, we have had over I cannot see my own wording. Over 9,000 bed nights provided, and that's counting the individual per each individual night. And again, our focus is always going to be not solely on the professional, just to get someone rehoused, to get them a job, but really focusing on their personal development, looking at all dimensions of wellness, whether it be mental, physical, financial, social, professional, or other dimensions of wellness. A reason why I continue to want to speak publicly is because though we may be continuing some great successes within Vermette the Inn, there's still a dramatic shift within Michigan as a whole with the number of persons who are unhoused and the number of available services that continue to support these individuals. Within the past 2 years, we saw a decrease of available shelters, but a drastic increase of numbers of individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So on this chart, we had a decrease of 45.9% persons in shelter. That wasn't because the numbers had gone down. That wasn't because the number of available housing units had gone up, but that's because the number of available shelter providers had gone down. So why I continue to reach out is because you all make our shelter a possibility to sustain our operations going into our 16th year of service and really maintaining our operations to ensure that all persons have somewhere that they can go should they reach this emergency state. Looking at the past year with our unique individuals, we are seeing a dramatic shift. Now, 32 to 51 has always been the most prominent age range of persons experiencing an episode of homelessness, but we're even seeing an increase over into the ages of 18 to 31. Individuals coming fresh out of high school who may not even finished high school and trying to seek shelter depending upon their circumstances. And so we continue to tailor that to better understand and meet them where they're at once they arrive at our facilities. Not many people have things, so the donations that are provided are helping to ensure that we have sanitary products, that we have toilet paper that people can use, and that they can regain some sense of that personal self-sufficiency and pride that we have to take a shower, to have clothing that they can have on their backs. and additional things to swap out when they may not have readily had that. So with regards to that, I do want to provide those additional updates as to the recent successes that we've been seeing. So as previously mentioned, we did hire an additional street outreach and housing navigator. Previously, for 3 years, we only had one person who was trying to work with not only guests at Room at the Inn, but also our domestic violence shelter at Harbor House, the Jansen House, and other providers who are offering up shelter. And now this individual is going out onto the streets, trying to identify persons in parks who may be calling from their car with their children. In fact, we had a mother and daughter who were just going to start their new year in high school, mother starting employment as a registered nurse and trying to seek out what it was that could be possible. And because of the community contributions, we were able to offer up their daughter a backpack with school supplies, for multiple pairs of clothing that she could swap throughout the day, and for the mother offering up vouchers through our Goodwill services to make sure that she had scrubs, not just one pair, but a few pairs that she could alternate through. Exactly. This is the part that just warms my heart, that I get to see these individuals really flourish and see our resources truly utilized. As previously mentioned, we do have a max occupancy of 30 persons with permanent beds. We are able to offer up emergency overflow shelter within our kitchen, so then our max occupancy goes up to 45. But because of health department and fire department regulations, they're not the most conducive for sleep and just being able to put their head down on a table. So what we're able to do through the Salvation Army as well as community action is offer up extended hotel voucher stays through America's Best Value Inn, through the Tall Pines and the Birchmont hotels, and we're able to provide transportation for them to then get over to those hotels. Within the past week, we've had a dozen families, individual households come through that were able to utilize that service. We do also help try to complete intake through North Care and connect persons, eliminate any fear, concern, or unknown, and really try to promote the personal well-being of individuals going into rehabilitative, whether it be outpatient or inpatient residential rehabilitative programs. We want to walk alongside our guests through these journeys, trying to eliminate fear and really ensure that they at least have someone that they can have, that they know once they start this new chapter, and having that level of comfort and connection and reliance that they can fall back on. Within the past year, including community action, including you all, we've had more than 40 community collaborators who've made our operations possible, who've helped us to really flourish, including our local coffee shops who've assisted with coat drives that we were able to get over 200 winter coats that were distributed for Room at the Inn guests, but also to local shelter providers. We were able to get more than 100 pairs of socks through our local high schools donated. We were able to raise over $10,000 to support our operations and making sure that our staff could be paid in order to maintain nighttime security through our community partners, and that came through one of the local coffee shops. And with that, we continue to bring in employers who are expressing interest in eliminating low barriers to their employment applications. So we've got local businesses who are coming in, engaging in one-on-one conversations with guests who might not be employed, trying to see what are their interests, what are their passions, what are their desires. Having the one-on-one interview there and then, and trying to see, okay, what can we do together to make sure that you're able to then start a new chapter and continue growing from this standpoint. As of recent, within this past week, we had the food service manager from one of our local hotels, the Landmark, who had come in trying to connect with over 5 guests, completing their application process. And now we've got members of the St. Vincent's community store wanting to see who would be interested in offering up services that are accessible for guests. So we've seen a lot of growth, we've seen a lot of determination, and for that, all I can truly continue saying is thank you for all that you've done. You have helped us to achieve these successes. You've helped us to meet our guests' most basic needs and then some as they really try to flourish into this next chapter. So I welcome anyone after the service to come up, ask any questions, curiosities, and if interested and available, I would love to have you over at our shelter. Come tour the facilities, have a meal with one of our guests, have a cup of coffee, Or as of late, one of the biggest things is a game of chess. We've got 7 guests who are really competitive. I don't know how it came about, but a good chess match is always the one thing that seems to get their day started off on the best foot possible. So thank you all for having me, and I look forward to continuing the conversation afterwards. So thank you so much.